Hello, this is Pastor Russ, and I'm so glad that you're joining me here on Monday. It's time for our mini Bible study, which is a Bible study that we conduct in 10 minutes or less. Today we are studying the book of Genesis, and we're looking at chapter 26 of Genesis, which is the story of Isaac and Abimelech. So glad to have you joining with me today as we study this important book of Genesis. If you remember, we studied the transition last week between the story of Abraham and the story of Isaac, and today we're going to be looking primarily at Isaac as he meets another leader named Abimelech. So, starting with verse 1 of chapter 26. Now there was a famine in the land, this is the land of Canaan, besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. Now, I wanted to show you a little map here. I have a map of Gerar. It's right here. And you can see down here on the left side, right here where my pointer is, that's Gerar. So uh, Isaac was more in the northern part of Israel, closer to the Dead Sea, Hebron area, and he travels here to Gerar, which is a little valley, and this is where the Philistines are. And eventually he's going to settle here in this little town called Beersheba. So just kind of keep in mind where things are as we continue reading in chapter 26. And the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham." And here we're going to see the repeating of the covenant that God gave first to Abraham and now is going to continue through Isaac. Starting with verse 4. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. Sound familiar? And will give them all these lands, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements, my commandments, my decrees, and my laws. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, she said, "She is my sister," because she was afraid to say, "She is my wife." Again, sounding familiar, it's a repeat of the story of when Abraham and Sarah went down to Egypt to escape. And that's the same trick that Abraham pulled on them, saying that Sarah was not his wife, but his sister. He thought the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah because she is beautiful. When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, "She is really your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?" Isaac answered him, "Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her." Then Abimelech said, "What is this that you have done to us? One of the men might well have slept with your wife and would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, "Anyone who molests this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. Now, I'm going to stop here just a minute at verse 12 because this planting and the reaping of 100-fold is going to come into play later on, many, many years later, in the Gospels when Jesus tells the parable of the man that sowed seed on 4 different kinds of soil. And on the good soil, he said that he got a crop of 100-fold. And here we see that here is an example of someone who got 100-fold crop. And why is that? Well, look at the end of verse 12. It says that he reaped 100-fold because, here it is, the Lord blessed him. So when we obey God and we're blessed by God, this 100-fold is not something very unusual. It's just part of God's blessing of us. And so we need to keep this in mind. Let's continue now with verse 13. The man, that's Isaac, became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek. Now, that word Esek is a Hebrew word that means a dispute or struggle, because they disputed with him, it says. Verse 21, then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also. So he named it Sitnah, and that means opposition. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, which means room, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Azazaz, his personal advisor, and Philcol, the commander of his forces. Isaac asked them, "Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" They answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord was with you. So we said, there ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you that you will do us no harm, just as we did not molest you, but always treated you well and sent you away in peace. And now you are blessed by the Lord." Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. Early the next morning, the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they left him in peace. That day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We have found water." And he called it Sheba. And that word Sheba means oath, or it could mean seven. I think it's because they made an oath there. And to this day, the name of this town has been Beersheba, which means the well of the oath. And now we jump to partly a story of one of Isaac's sons, Esau, verse 34. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beri the Hittite, and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and to Rebekah. Now, why is Esau mentioned here, and why is he a source of grief to his parents, Rebekah and to Isaac? Well, it's because he married a Hittite, a local woman there, a local Canaanite. And remember, God had forbade Abraham to intermarry with the Canaanites, and he forbade Isaac to marry that. He sent, someone far away back to his homeland to get Rebekah to bring back to him. But here we see one of Isaac's sons disobeying that and marrying a Hittite, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining with me today on this Bible study, and hope you have a great week as we start in the Christmas season, season of Advent. And if you want to check out more things, I encourage you to check things out on my website. I've got new podcasts every week, new things happening. And if you want to, just go there to pastorruss.net. So this is Pastor Russ saying so long, and I'm really appreciative that you joined with me today, and hope you have a great and blessed day. Amen.